I've been wrong on how high gold could come. No doubt about that. I didn't see that. I didn't see how much it would rise before. I would all along been expecting gold to come into a massive bull market after this. What I think we're seeing here is the prelude to what is coming after. But I definitely think we'll see that this move here will bring us into, above 10,000, 15,000, and I think into the 2030s you'll see gold. There are, credible calculations that can suggest that gold can go even to as high as above $30,000 per ounce. It really feels a little uncoordinated also with gold. Gold was up, and then all of a sudden silver spikes now. But I take the point, and I think both silver and gold will be completed much higher levels than we are today. Again, silver and gold have been front-running things a little too much, I think. So I think there's going to be a pullback, but let's see.
Gold has shown extraordinary momentum, climbing 25% in the previous year and already surging 50% in the current year, which has surprisingly exceeded some expectations. However, this rapid ascent in gold, paired with a sudden spike in silver prices, is viewed as front-running the market, suggesting a short-term pullback may be imminent. Despite this near-term correction, the long-term outlook remains incredibly bullish, with credible calculations suggesting gold could eventually reach as high as $30,000 per ounce. In this explosive new interview, renowned macro analyst Henrik Zeberg admits he dramatically underestimated this leg of the gold rally, calling the current move merely the prelude to an even bigger bull market ahead. While expecting a near-term pullback during an incoming deflationary bust and dollar surge, Zeberg remains ultra-bullish long-term, forecasting gold reaching $10,000 to $15,000 and potentially $30,000 plus per ounce by the 2030 as the world moves toward a monetary reset, with gold, not Bitcoin, becoming the cornerstone of the next sound money system. Let's watch clips from Henrik Zeberg's explosive interview to gain more insight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and enable notifications for additional in-depth content. Thanks for joining us again. Enjoy the video.
If you look back in the 4 times you've had a larger pullback in Bitcoin, it was about 70 to 90%. This time around is a real recession setting in. A real recession is not going to be kind to Bitcoin. You will have that the stock market is going to decline. If my model is correct, and we're going to see a very massive top, you're going to have a massive decline in NASDAQ. And NASDAQ is outperformed by Bitcoin in terms of upside and downside. So I think you're going to see Bitcoin crashing quite a lot. And you see there's actually, when we have days like the last few weeks here, all of a sudden, I mean, what brought Bitcoin down from 125,000 to 80,000, $45,000 in a matter of 2 weeks? What was it? It wasn't really a big thing. I mean, there wasn't a big thing going on. Now imagine if you have a credit crisis, if you have the dollar going to 110, the Dixie 110 or to 115, and you have, massive defaults, and you have, the stock market, cracking. Wow, who in their right mind would think that Bitcoin will survive that when it can drop by $45,000, 30%, 35% in a matter of no time due to nothing? I think people are talking about all their diamond hands and so on. It'll prove and it'll come out that it's all paper hands when it comes to it. So, and I don't see Bitcoin as the savior of the financial system. There's no way you'll have something like that saving the financial system. The financial system needs saving, without a doubt. It needs a monetary reset. We need to get to a new, sound monetary future. But that's not going to be Bitcoin, I'm sorry to say. And I have to be a little more harsh on it now, because I think, honestly, people out there need to understand the reality of things. I hear so many people sitting and thinking, oh, but Bitcoin is going to stand. And I'm just like, look at the declines we have had without any reason. Why would you then think a severe crisis could bring Bitcoin to its high? And then they come with something with money printing, and you can just look to the charts and say, NASDAQ dropped in the financial crisis a lot, even though there was massive money printing. The NASDAQ dropped also in the 2001 crisis, even though there was massive money printing. Why would you think Bitcoin would do any better than that? And that's why what I think. So people are unfortunately being led by all these Bitcoin maximalists and DeFi and whatever it is. And I think this is just the narrative of a bubble. That's the narrative. You and I are old enough to remember also the bubble of 2001 and the .com. And we had all this with the new economy and all this. And it's not about how much money you make anymore. It's about how much you spend on marketing and all these things. It's about how many clicks we see and all this. I mean, this is the very definition of, the narrative you need to see in a bubble, and that's what we have.
So let's move on and talk about gold now. Gold had a pretty good 2024. It was up 25%. It's already up 50% in 2025. Looks like it's got a lot of momentum. What do you think?
I think, yeah, I've been wrong on how high gold could come. No doubt about that. Could go. I didn't see that. I didn't see how much it would rise before. I would have all along been expecting gold to come into a massive bull market after this. What I think we're seeing here is the prelude to what is coming after. And when I mean after, that's because I look into the decline we're going to see here first, the crash. There are different kinds of crashes to the market. If you look to the 2022 crash or the decline that you had there in the stock market, it was really driven by an inflationary situation where stocks was declining because inflation was rising. That's not a good thing for the consumer, and hence it was not a good thing for the stock market. What we can see now is that the decline we could see here in the next one that comes will probably be a deflationary bust, which means it'll be similar to what we saw in 2008. In deflationary bust, there will be organizations, countries, private organizations, hedge funds, and so on, that will be needing liquidity. If I get it right, you go see the floor is going to open up. You'll see a lot of value dropping into that, and liquidity will be needed. That is also why Bitcoin will drop. The Fed will not step in and close those gaps immediately. First of all, they can't get out to it, and especially if we have what I can see as a private credit crisis developing, and you'll see the more opaque structure of that potential setup there, you'll have a lot of holes opening up everywhere. Liquidity will be needed. Liquidity meaning US dollars, and it doesn't mean gold, it doesn't mean Bitcoin. In that setup, I don't think gold will do well, and I still think you're going to see a massive decline first. But the rally that we have seen is telling us that it's setting up for something quite extraordinary. And if you look to a ratio like SPX versus gold, so SPX gold ratio, it has clearly broken lower. And that we have only seen 4 times in a century. That was in 1929 when there was a speculative bubble and gold started to outperform the stock market. We saw it again then in 1971 when we had Nixon coming out and doing the temporary we call that abandonment of the convertibility of dollars to gold. And then we had in 2000 when we had a speculative .com bubble. This time, I think we have a combination. You have what you had in 71, where it was a beginning to a losing faith in the financial system, because that is what happens when all of a sudden you can just print money. It's just not connected to gold any longer. But that we have now as well. And we have a situation also where you have a speculative bubble. So I think you have the double of that. And if you look to that ratio, then that decline could suggest that gold by far could outperform the stock market the coming 10 years ahead. So I think you will see gold will do extremely well over the next many years. But does that rule out that you cannot see gold declining in dollar value? No, because in a deflationary crisis, you probably see that you need real dollars. So I still think there's going to be somewhat of a pullback, and then you'll see it going to rise. But yeah, definitely, gold is going to outperform Bitcoin. And again, we need to start short, middle, and long term. Long term, you're going to see gold by far outperforming Bitcoin, and by far being a very, very solid asset. And by the way, into the next, you can say, next many, many years, when we through the first part of this crisis, I think you'll see commodity companies in general will do fantastic. We had the old top here back in 2011. We had the decline. Then we probably had something of a move higher, which, this consolidation here was really a long one and a strong one. And when it broke here, that is obviously very, very important. It does not take away that you can see a big decline. And I think you are actually going to see that big decline. I don't think we are in a situation where you'll just see this going higher if the Dixie is going to the 120, which I think is going to go to. And I think liquidity will be everything. But in the greater scheme of things, everything is correcting also. But in the bigger scheme of things, if this is going to happen, then this move here is going to be absolutely fantastic. This move here will bring us into, above 10,000, 15,000, and I think into the 2030s, you'll see gold. There are, credible calculations that can suggest that gold can go even to as high as above $30,000 per ounce. But again, I would wait to see what happens into a deflationary bust. But let's see if the pullback comes, and then we'll see that, because I think gold will be part of also redefining the monetary setup, the regime that we have when that comes. When that comes around. And when will that happen? That will normally come at about when the time when we start to see potential stagflation. The moment when the dollar starts to decline in a strong manner, you'll see that there will be some kind of need for a reshuffling of things. What I talked about earlier, there will need to be a sound monetary system to support the economy and the world, and that will, again, as I see it, become where gold will have its place, and it will not be Bitcoin; it will be gold, and we'll just have to see what will the pullback that I expect here mean. People see then there are a lot of my fellow analysts out there that thinks that it's just going to keep going higher here, and I think maybe that's the dangerous perception at this point. But again, I was wrong before, so let's see how it goes this time. Gold was up, and then all of a sudden silver spikes now, and silver is really an industrial product. And if you look at it, it's not really resonating with what we see in the economy in terms of. So I think there's a lot of people have been front running the inflation narrative, and I hear what you're saying. I just don't think the inflation will be what can carry it through a financial crisis, but also a very sharp deflation. But I take the point, and I think both silver and gold will be completed much higher levels than we are today. Again, silver and gold have been front running things a little too much, I think. So I think there's going to be a pullback, but let's see.
As the old financial order cracks under impossible debt and fading trust, Zeberg sees history rhyming one final time. The same forces that crowned Gold King in 1933 and 1971 are gathering again. When the dust settles after the coming storm, those holding real, timeless money will watch the purchasing power of paper wealth evaporate while their ounces buy entire city blocks. The question isn't if gold wins, it's whether you'll be on the right side when the greatest wealth transfer in a century finally completes. Stay vigilant. The reset clock is ticking. If you found this breakdown helpful and want to stay ahead of these historic market moves, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Your support helps the channel grow and keeps you informed when the markets shift next.